We were at a friend's housewarming party. It was one of those Saturday nights where the air was warm, the backyard lights twinkled over laughter, and nothing seemed out of place. My wife, Tessa, wore a burgundy dress she hadn't pulled out in years, said she wanted to feel a little spicy tonight. I took it as a compliment. She curled her hair, added perfume I hadn't smelled since our honeymoon, and even offered to drive. I remember thinking, wow, she must really want me to enjoy myself tonight. I wish I had paid more attention to what that dress really meant. The party was already buzzing when we got there. Old college friends, new coworkers, neighbors, they were all mingling. Tessa disappeared into the kitchen with a group of women the moment we arrived. I didn't mind. I grabbed a beer, chatted with Brian, the host, and made my rounds. It was a normal evening until my phone buzzed. Work. Always work. I sighed and stepped outside to answer the call. It wasn't anything urgent, just my project lead asking if I could jump on something Monday morning. The conversation lasted maybe 6 minutes, but 6 minutes was enough. When I came back inside, I instantly felt it. That eerie stillness in the air, like walking into a room where someone had just been talking about you. People weren't laughing as loudly. A few avoided eye contact. Tessa wasn't in the kitchen anymore, nor in the living room or on the patio where she said she'd be. I looked around. Nothing. I spotted Brian, and as I moved to ask him if he'd seen my wife, something caught my attention upstairs. A shadow disappeared into one of the guest bedrooms. Now, I'm not the jealous type, or at least I didn't used to be, but something in my gut screamed. My heart started pounding. Quietly, I walked up the steps. The hall was empty, just muffled music and distant chatter below. I approached the guest room at the end. The door was almost closed, but not latched. And then I heard it. A laugh, her laugh, then silence. I should have walked away, right? Given her the benefit of the doubt, but I didn't. I pushed the door gently open, not even sure what I expected, and that's when I saw it. Tessa was sitting on the edge of the bed. Her dress was hiked up higher than it should have been. Her face was flushed, hair a mess. Sitting across from her was a man, mid-30s, smirking, shirt unbuttoned, one shoe off. In between them on the bed was a half-empty glass of red wine and a phone pointed right at them. Still recording. They both froze. Tessa, I said, my voice barely mine. Her eyes widened. I was just... The guy cut in, not even flinching. Dude, it's not what it looks like. It was exactly what it looked like. She scrambled to smooth her dress, knocking over the wine. It splashed onto the sheets. I watched it spread like blood, soaking into white cotton. I came up here to talk, she stammered. We weren't. The guy got up and grabbed his shirt. Look, man, we didn't think anyone would come looking. That's what burned. We didn't think anyone would come looking. I turned and left, walked straight down those stairs, out the door, across the lawn, and into the street. I heard her calling after me, but I didn't stop. I didn't even feel the night air. I just walked. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay. I didn't sleep that night. By sunrise, I had packed a bag and moved into a hotel. I didn't call her, didn't respond to her dozen missed calls. I didn't even cry. I just stared at the ceiling, wondering how long she'd been doing this and how I could have been so blind. But the worst part? That was only the beginning. The hours after I left that housewarming party felt like I was stuck in some limbo between rage and paralysis. I didn't even know what I was more shocked by, what I saw, or how quickly it unfolded, like it had been rehearsed. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't even go to my brother's place like I considered. I needed silence more than sympathy. So, I checked into a quiet hotel on the other side of town, turned off all notifications, and just sat in that room with the curtains drawn, letting the disbelief stretch into dawn. The following day, Tessa sent a single message. Please come home. We need to talk. I didn't reply. Instead, I replayed the scene in my head over and over. How casual he looked, how comfortable she seemed. That's what haunted me. Not just the betrayal itself, but how easy it looked for her. As if this wasn't the first time, as if I'd been the outsider in my own marriage for longer than I realized. And that damned phone. I couldn't get the image out of my mind. Her sitting on the bed, his phone facing them, recording. What were they doing before I walked in? What would they have done after if I hadn't interrupted? And why record it? That last question gnawed at me. By Monday, I forced myself to return home, but I didn't tell her. I arrived in the middle of the day, assuming she'd be at work. I needed answers, evidence, something to prove I wasn't losing my mind. The house was quiet as expected, but her laptop was on the kitchen table, unlocked. Curiosity, no, desperation got the better of me. I clicked the browser. Gmail. Open. Brave. She wasn't even trying to hide it. The emails were surreal. Threads between her and someone labeled Chris G, short for Chris from the gym. I realized. Harmless at first, flirty, then explicit, then video attachments. I almost didn't click them, but I did. And what I saw wasn't just a confirmation of the affair. It was a production. Multiple angles, lingerie I'd never seen her wear. Her voice moaning his name. Their faces close to the camera kissing like teenagers. Worse still, I recognized the background in some of the clips. Our guest room, our bed, even the patio I built with my own hands. And the dates, weeks back, months. There were 7 videos. 7. Some sent from her, others from him. One even had the file name. Tess_housewarming_prep.mp4. My stomach dropped. That wasn't just an impulsive moment at the party. It had been planned. The red dress, the perfume, the casual mention of just having a little fun tonight. It was a script, and I had been nothing but the husband playing the role of the clueless idiot. But here's where things got weirder. One of the emails sent just days before the party was from someone else entirely. Not Chris. Someone with a username that looked like a handle, graybox_producer. The subject read, "Let me know if you're still interested." The email said, "There's demand for real couples inside. You two have great energy. Our viewers love authenticity. You'll get paid more if your husband never finds out. Drama sells." My heart pounded. It wasn't just cheating. It was content. They were turning this into profit. A show. Maybe even selling it online. And she knew. She was in on it. All of it. I wanted to scream. But instead, I backed away from the laptop, grabbed my keys and left. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed time and I needed a plan because this wasn't just infidelity. This was something darker. And it was about to unravel far more than just our marriage. I drove aimlessly that afternoon, my hands shaking the whole time, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing anchoring me to reality. I pulled into an empty parking lot behind a strip mall and just sat there trying to piece together the storm that had just hit me. My wife wasn't just cheating. She was filming it, distributing it, and worse, possibly profiting from it without my knowledge, in my house, on my furniture, in our bed. That anonymous email kept repeating in my head. There's demand for real couples. You'll get paid more if your husband never finds out. My stomach turned. That wasn't just a creepy message. It was a business model. Was she in contact with more people like this? Was she part of something ongoing? I opened my own laptop, connected to a public Wi-Fi, and made a huge mistake. I searched for the phrase graybox_producer and added the words couple content to it. I wish I hadn't. Dozens of results popped up. Not on Google, on forums, subreddits, anonymous file-sharing pages. I opened a few and there she was. Not once, not twice, but 5 separate thumbnails. Tessa, my wife, in videos labeled with degrading titles uploaded by users with names like Betavision, Cuckroom, and Wife Swap Vault. I clicked on one, barely breathing. The opening frame was our guest bathroom. She was laughing, naked, and the man behind the camera said, "He's at work right now, right?" She nodded and whispered, "Yeah, he never checks. It's our little game." I nearly threw the laptop, but I forced myself to keep watching. Not because I wanted to see, but because I needed to know how deep this went. The man filming wasn't Chris from the party. It was someone older, someone I didn't recognize. And that meant what I feared was true. This wasn't just one affair. There were multiple men, multiple videos, possibly months, maybe a year of her leading this double life right under my nose. The cruelest irony? I used to be proud of how independent she was. Tessa had always been social, confident, a little wild in her youth. I figured we'd balanced each other out. Me being the quiet, steady one, her bringing color to our life. But that color had become poison, and I had been drinking it every day without noticing. I started saving everything. Links, screenshots, metadata from the videos. I emailed them to myself from a burner account. Not because I planned to do anything reckless, but because I realized this wasn't going to be some sad, teary-eyed breakup. I was going to need evidence. I wasn't going to let her smile through a divorce settlement while playing the victim. And just when I thought I had seen it all, something happened that nearly made me pass out in that parking lot. A new video went live on one of those sites while I was still scrolling. It had a timestamp from the night of the party. The title: "She seduced him while her husband was outside." I clicked on it, my entire body frozen. It was them, Chris and Tessa. The entire thing, beginning to end, the same bedroom I walked in on. But what I hadn't known, what I hadn't seen, was what happened before I opened the door. They talked about me, about how I was probably on a boring work call again. She joked about how easy it was to distract me. And then she said something that made me audibly groan. "Let's make it quick. He's probably too spineless to say anything, even if he finds out." Spineless. That was the moment something inside me broke. I wasn't angry in the usual way. I wasn't even heartbroken anymore. I felt scorched, like my soul had been scraped out and replaced with something colder. That video, that one video, changed everything, because now this wasn't just cheating. It was mockery. It was humiliation. And the whole world, or at least a perverse corner of it, was watching and laughing. I closed the laptop, sat in silence for what felt like an hour, and then picked up my phone. I texted her just one sentence. "I saw it all. Every last second." She replied instantly, "Please just come home. I can explain everything." But there was no explanation for this. There was only one thing left to do: disappear. I didn't go home that night. I didn't even go to the hotel. Instead, I drove 2 hours out of town to a lakeside cabin my late uncle left me in his will. It was rarely used, dusty, barely furnished, but it had power, running water, and more importantly, no one knew I was there. I needed distance, not just from Tessa, but from the version of myself that would have accepted another apology or begged for answers. I didn't answer her calls, not even when they turned frantic. She left voicemails crying, whispering that it wasn't what it looked like and that things got out of hand. Then came the excuses. She was lost, confused, pressured. She blamed Chris. She blamed the videos on something stupid they tried once or twice. She even had the audacity to say it didn't mean anything. But I already knew too much. I had seen the emails, the offers, the scripting, the filming. The fact that she was uploading new content while begging for forgiveness only proved how deep her deception ran. She wasn't trying to fix things. She was trying to cover her tracks before I did something permanent, like file for divorce or go public. On the third day of silence, she showed up at my job. I didn't see her at first. My coworkers did. I guess they thought she looked out of place because 2 of them warned me she was in the lobby before I walked out. I ducked through the back exit, got in my car, and watched her from a distance. She looked like a shattered version of herself. Messy hair, no makeup, shaking hands, clinging to her phone like it was a lifeline. That used to affect me. It didn't anymore. Instead of facing her, I went back to the cabin. That's when I found something that tipped the entire story on its head. I was digging through one of my old storage boxes looking for my uncle's paperwork when I came across an old tablet I hadn't touched in years. I powered it on just out of boredom. It was still connected to our old cloud drive. Tessa and I had set it up back when we first got married. The sync hadn't stopped. It had been backing up her photos automatically, even the ones from her private folders. What I saw next made everything feel even sicker. There were hundreds of photos, not just of her and Chris. There were at least 4 different men. One of them I recognized. He was our neighbor. Another, a coworker from my company. Then there were candid shots of me eating, sleeping, working at my desk. Some taken from angles that made it clear she was capturing me without my knowledge. The captions chilled me. "Behind every loyal man, Beta fuel. Still thinks I'm working late. It was humiliation layered over betrayal. It wasn't just that she cheated. She documented it, mocked it, and stored it like trophies. And there I was, right in the center of it all, a joke in my own marriage. And then I found the worst folder of all. Drafts. Never uploaded. Inside were rough cuts of videos, edited clips where she was clearly rehearsing lines. One had her speaking directly to the camera. She called herself by a different name, Mira. She described herself as a married thrill seeker exploring boundaries. She said she had a vanilla husband who has no idea what his perfect wife is up to. I had to pause the video 3 times. My hands were sweating. I was lightheaded. She had turned our life into a character study and me into the clueless background extra. That night, I sat on the cabin porch staring at the lake, the cold wind biting at my face. I didn't feel human anymore. I felt like some hollow placeholder in someone else's fantasy. My marriage wasn't just a lie. It had been weaponized for content, followers, and God knows what kind of twisted gratification. I thought about burning the tablet, throwing it into the lake. But I didn't. I was done hiding. If she wanted a show, she was going to get one. It's strange how quickly someone you thought you knew can become a stranger. No, scratch that. Predator. That's what she felt like to me now. A woman who had hunted not for sex or even attention, but for domination, control. Tessa didn't just cheat on me. She designed a performance out of our marriage and broadcasted it to anyone willing to click play. And worst of all, she enjoyed it. I started connecting dots I didn't want to connect. Memories I'd buried, moments that once seemed insignificant, now returned with new, horrifying clarity. Like the time she went on a girls' trip last summer, but came home with strange bruises on her thighs. Or when she suddenly insisted we stop sharing bank passwords, saying it was for financial independence. Or the late-night Zoom calls where I overheard giggling and muted audio. At the time, I chalked it all up to trust, because I trusted her like a fool. I had to know what else she was hiding. So, I accessed our shared bank records and old statements. First, nothing obvious jumped out. But then, I saw an outgoing transfer to a payment service I didn't recognize. It was recurring, monthly, always around $1,250. I Googled it. Turned out to be tied to a niche adult content platform, invite only. Not OnlyFans, something deeper, encrypted, hidden. I created a fake account. Took hours to get in. When I finally did, I searched her alias, Mira. The page loaded slowly. My throat dried up. Her profile had over 2,000 followers. Subscription, $29.99 per month. She had uploaded 73 videos, hundreds of photos. There were pinned comments from users begging for custom content, calling her Queen, Goddess, Mira Perfection. I scanned the list of usernames, some anonymous but others real names. A few from our town, one from our local gym. Even one I recognized from a former client of mine. She was famous. Quietly, discreetly, she had built a digital double life. One where I was nothing but a backstory, a convenient prop to complete the illusion. But it wasn't just videos. She was selling things, used clothing, underwear, memory packages. Whatever the hell that meant. She had even started a private chat tier. I clicked on the sample gallery. What I saw stopped my breath. Screenshots of my texts, my messages to her, birthday notes, sweet goodnight paragraphs. She had uploaded them, circled phrases like, "You're the love of my life," and captioned them with things like, "He has no idea what I did to his shirt an hour before he sent this." I gripped the edge of the table so hard I thought my fingers would break. But I kept looking. I had to. One final folder was locked. It was titled Last Chapter. Subscribers were commenting on it, speculating what it was. A big finale, a public reveal. Some even asked, "Will the husband finally find out?" I realized, horrified, that Tessa had planned to release my reaction, my devastation. She had either been secretly recording me or planning to. I looked around the cabin. It was my safe place. Was she here too at some point? Had she bugged the house? I checked every corner. Nothing obvious, but paranoia had already taken root, and that was the final betrayal. I no longer felt safe in any space we once shared. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I made a list, a very careful, deliberate one. I started gathering everything, the emails, the video metadata, the banking transactions, the cloud backups, the screenshots. I backed it all up to an encrypted drive and stored it somewhere she could never find. Because this wasn't about heartbreak anymore. This was about exposure and consequences. And when I finally returned to the city, I didn't go to our house. I went to her office and waited, because if she wanted to live like this, to treat our marriage like a game, then she could explain it all, not to me, but to her boss, her colleagues, and to everyone who ever believed she was the kind of woman who deserved to be trusted. I arrived at her office before noon and waited across the street in my car. I didn't storm in, didn't cause a scene. I wasn't there to shout or humiliate her. No, I wanted to watch her walk out with her coffee, chatting with coworkers, laughing like her world was untouched, because in just a few minutes that world was going to split at the seams. She didn't know what I had. She didn't know I had been building a digital case file. She still thought I was grieving, broken, retreating into a hotel room or crying in a cabin somewhere, nursing my wounds like a good little beta. But the man she betrayed wasn't the one she left behind. That man was gone. At 12:17 p.m., Tessa walked out of the building in that navy blue blazer she always used for serious meetings. Hair tied back, bright smile. She looked like the model employee, perfect wife, accomplished professional. She hugged someone goodbye and started walking toward her car. I stepped out in front of her just as she clicked the key fob. Her expression dropped instantly. "Oh my God, where have you been?" she gasped. I didn't say anything. I just handed her a flash drive. "You're going to want to watch that before your next Mira upload," I said coldly. "And maybe before your next HR meeting." She looked down at the flash drive like it was a grenade. "What is this?" "Everything," I said. "Every file, every password you forgot to delete, every chat, every bank transfer. It's all there. Don't worry, I made backups." She looked around nervously. "Can we talk somewhere private? Like our bed?" I replied, "Oh wait, you've had plenty of company there already." She reached for my arm. I pulled back. "I'm not here to negotiate. I'm not here to listen to your sob story or hear about how you were lost or trying something new. I'm here to give you a choice." She blinked. "A choice? You walk away from everything quietly. No legal battle, no share of my pension, no claim to my name, no attempt to manipulate this. In return, I don't take this to your boss, to your family, to my attorney, or God help you, to the press." She actually laughed. "You think anyone would care? You think this scares me?" I raised an eyebrow. "It should." Then I pulled out my phone. "Do you remember Logan?" She frowned. "Who?" "Your intern. The one you thought was just a stupid kid. The one you bragged to in chat about breaking in married life like it was a pair of shoes." I pressed play on a recording. Her voice crystal clear. "He'd never leave. He's addicted to routine. Men like him always stay. That's why I can film in the house and he doesn't even notice." She turned white. "I gave Logan an ultimatum. I said either he shares your chats with me or I make sure HR finds out what you were doing during company retreats. Guess what he picked?" She tried to speak. I stepped forward. "You thought I was weak. You thought I wouldn't fight back. That I'd just collapse and vanish. But I've been watching you, Tessa. Listening, learning, and now the script is mine." She started crying. Real panic tears. "Please, you don't understand. It wasn't supposed to go that far. It started off as a thrill, just something stupid, and then it grew." I let her finish. I let her say every cliché I knew was coming. That she still loved me, that she never meant to hurt me, that it was all a fantasy that spun out of control. And then I said the one thing that made her knees buckle. "I know about the final video, the one titled Last Chapter. I know you planned to make me part of it, that you were building to a big finale, your husband's meltdown, right?" She stared at me in horror. I leaned in close and whispered, "You'll never get to release it because I just filmed this conversation. You see, Tessa, I've learned from the best." Then I walked away. She didn't follow. She couldn't, because for once, she wasn't in control of the scene. After that confrontation outside her office, I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel anything. I thought I would. I thought watching her world wobble would give me some sort of justice, but instead, I just felt hollow. I'd been chasing truth, proof, revenge. But now that I had it all in my hands, it just felt like ashes. Still, I wasn't done. There was one more thing to do. One final thread I hadn't pulled. The account Greybox_producer. The one who emailed her that disgusting message about drama selling better if the husband doesn't know. I couldn't get that line out of my head. Who was he? And how did he even find her in the first place? I dug deeper. I knew Tessa had used an encrypted email to communicate with him, and she'd stored login credentials in a forgotten note in her cloud drive. Stupid mistake. From there, I got in. I traced the emails backward, ran them through IP lookups, connected them with a few old social media accounts she'd interacted with over the past year. What I found made me sick. The man behind Greybox_producer wasn't some faceless stranger. He was someone I knew. His real name was Trent Mathers. We went to college together. We used to be friends. He was even a groomsman at our wedding. I hadn't spoken to him in years. He moved to the West Coast, started a digital media business no one really understood. Tessa had always found him too arrogant. Turns out that was a cover. She'd been in contact with him for at least 8 months. He recruited her, encouraged her, scripted some of the scenes. He was the one sending her the money, arranging the private channel, managing her audience. And he knew I was the husband. He knew everything. This wasn't just an affair. It was a collaborative exploitation. I didn't call him. I didn't send a warning. I did something much worse. I packaged everything. The videos, the messages, the screenshots, her whispered admissions, the link to the encrypted content site with her alias, and attached a statement I'd written carefully and factually. Then I sent it anonymously to several places. A legal firm that specialized in digital fraud and consent violations, her HR department, his investor board, and 2 journalists who ran a respected tech ethics blog. Within 48 hours, everything cracked. Tessa was suspended from her job, pending an internal investigation. The news hadn't gone public yet, but word spread fast inside the company. A security breach, they called it at first. She tried to downplay it, told a few friends it was a misunderstanding, and her husband was retaliating during a separation, but it didn't matter. Her office computer had been used to upload sensitive files. It was over. Trent? He disappeared from every platform, deleted all his accounts. His company site went offline. One of the journalists got back to me. Apparently, he'd been involved in similar operations with other couples, all under the guise of consensual digital experiences. But there were no signed releases, no legal waivers, no protection. Just manipulation, deception, and exploitation. A federal investigation was open within days. As for me, I met with a lawyer not just for divorce, for full asset protection. I had already moved my accounts. I removed her name from every joint document. The prenup, which she had once called insulting, had a clause about public defamation and immoral conduct. I had enough to activate it 10 times over. But the real weight didn't lift until I got a call one evening from her mother. I hadn't spoken to her in years. We were never close, but she sounded broken, quiet. She simply said, "I don't know who my daughter is anymore. I just saw the folder. The thing she said about you. I'm sorry," she cried. And in that moment, I realized how far this thing had spread. This betrayal wasn't private anymore. It wasn't just a marital collapse. It had become a ripple that was pulling down every false image Tessa had built. Friend, wife, employee, daughter. Her entire facade was disintegrating. I didn't rejoice in it. I simply watched it burn. She tried calling me again that night. I didn't answer. She left a voice message. Not angry, not apologizing, just 6 broken words. "Please don't let it end like this." But it already had. After that final voicemail, just 6 words spoken through breathless guilt, I sat in silence for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't pace the floor. I didn't scream. Instead, I realized something that surprised even me. I wasn't angry anymore, not even hurt. What I felt was freedom. Because when you survive something like this, betrayal at a level most people wouldn't believe unless they saw the receipts, what follows is a strange kind of clarity. I had been living in a scripted life, one that Tessa directed, edited, and controlled without me even realizing it. But now I held the camera, I held the story, and I finally got to choose how the next chapter went. I finalized the divorce paperwork. She didn't contest anything. She didn't try to take the house or the car or even the dog. I think some part of her was too ashamed to fight or maybe just too exhausted to continue pretending. She disappeared from my world without ceremony. No courtroom drama. No angry social media rants. Just a quiet exit like an actress stepping off stage when the spotlight finally goes dark. I sold the house a few weeks later. Not out of spite, but because I needed distance from the walls that had witnessed so much silence, so many invisible cracks. I donated most of the furniture, boxed up only what truly mattered. Photos from childhood, my grandfather's watch, a few books, journals, tools. Everything else had become clutter attached to someone else's lives. The cabin became my safe place again. I spent 2 months there alone, not to escape, but to rebuild. I learned how to be still. I rediscovered what silence felt like without suspicion. I picked up old hobbies, woodworking, photography, even trail running. I cut my hair shorter, grew a beard, ate better, slept deeper. But the real healing didn't begin until I let someone in again. Her name was Natalie. We met by accident. A book fell off a shelf in a used bookstore, landed between us like fate was clumsy, but persistent. She was kind, sharp, a bit sarcastic, and unlike Tessa in every possible way. Our first conversation wasn't about relationships. It was about peace, the kind you fight to earn. I didn't tell her everything right away, but when I finally did, she didn't flinch. She just said, "You didn't deserve that," and left it there. No pity, no drama, just understanding. I didn't fall in love quickly. Not this time. I let it happen slowly, carefully, like watering a plant that had once withered. And when I finally looked in the mirror months later, I saw someone I hadn't seen in years. Not a husband, not a victim, just me. Now I live in a smaller house with bigger windows. I work less. I laugh more. And I share my life. Not with someone who films it for strangers, but with someone who lives it beside me, honestly, fully, and with heart. I don't think about Tessa anymore. Not with rage, not with pain, just with distant awareness. She was a storm I survived. And like any storm, she passed.